documenting a destruction that we found last night.
I'll go up to the house, bang on it and say, I don't believe.
Yeah.
Now,
What the fuck was that?
Did you hear that?
Hey everyone, this is the Cryptic Heartland podcast, episode number 2. I am one of your hosts, Leo Fernandez, and from Everyday Legacy Paranormal. And today we have a special podcast. We are broadcasting live on Mother's Day. So first of all, happy Mother's Day to everybody that's a mother out there.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy
down
Mother's
there.
Day.
Thank you.
So, once again, I'm Leo with Everyday Legacy Paranormal. To my left,
I'm Jason with Everyday Legacy and Road Trip Paranormal.
Roth with Everyday Legacy and Road Trip Paranormal.
Michelle with Road Trip Paranormal and Everyday Legacy.
and the man behind the scenes, sorry to cut you off, is Jeremiah Norwood. He's the one who's producing the show right now. Basically, we're going to talk about all kinds of things. As we discussed in the first episode, episode 1, we're going to talk about anything paranormal, anything with Bigfooting / Sasquatch, anything with UFOs, pretty much anything under the sun, and then some. So tonight we have a few couple topics. So if anything that interests you at all, definitely we have a live chat going on. We'll see if it works this week. I apologize if we have any kind of problems. I'll let you guys know out there in podcast land if we're having trouble with any kind of sound. Let me know so I can make sure we get that fixed. So tonight's topics, we're going to be talking about types of hauntings, and we're also going to be talking about those who do not believe in them or believe in them, basically skeptics of all things paranormal, any kind of conspiracy theory, anything we can think of that basically ties into that topic. And then if time permits, we'll have an extra couple topics we'll maybe discuss later on. So I'm going to turn it over to Jason here, then kick the show off with first topic, types of hauntings.
Types of hauntings. So, with everything that we do, and we go to businesses, to homes, historical locations, all over the place, we run into all the different kinds of hauntings that you can imagine so far. But we also run into a lot of people who ask questions about what we have seen, what we've ran into. Basically, there is a string of different types of hauntings that you could imagine. Probably one of the, do you want to go through a list, or?
We can start with that. Basically, I don't know if you said anything quite yet about them, but excuse me, I'm getting situated here. Types of hauntings, first off, you have your basic intellectual haunting, which basically means that if we are talking to something and it responds intellectually to us, or if it just communicates with us, gives us direct answers, that means it's very intelligent and it can talk to us.
Right.
There's also the residual type of haunting, which the best way I always describe to anybody who asks about it is it's the type of haunting where it's a timestamp in history, where picture a record player that's broken. It's just skipping on the same spot over and over and over again. That's what this type of haunting does. Basically, it's just a piece of history repeating itself. It doesn't know that we're around. We don't know that. We can see it, maybe hear it. Right. We just can't interact with it. It won't talk to us. It won't,
And that's probably what majority of the people that we meet, that's what they're seeing half the time, is residual. It's just they see the same thing. You have the classic haunting of seeing the woman in the white dress going down the stairs or down the hallway, or you see a man. Often they always see a man in the corner, whether it's a certain time of day, certain time of year, something like that. It's always, that is probably the one that we hear about the most, that we run into, and we try to capture when we go out to all these locations.
Yep, definitely. And One thing, I mean, about these types of hauntings, there is little caveats to them. Basically, there's things that, I mean, you can go. There's also the type of haunting that it is. It may be just your everyday haunts. It could be something that maybe, as everybody thinks, is demonic. It may not be demonic. It could be something that could be just basically malevolent, or it could just be, you know, a mischievous, you know, spirit entity or whatever, where it's like, hey, I'm here, look at me. I'm gonna push you, touch you. I may scratch you. I'm touching you. Come back to haunt you. And you know, basically, it's just to say, look at me. I'm here, or it's here. I'm trying to scare you. Get out of my house, kind of thing. This is my house from years past, or you know, whatever. So, any of the panel down there want to talk about anything or discuss
You said
anything
you had
with
a
those?
list.
So
Yeah,
jump
I
on
have
in
6
anytime.
different kinds of.
Please jump on in.
Okay, I have poltergeist, doppelganger, shadow hauntings,
Yep.
and then the demonic.
Those are all good ones, definitely. Go ahead.
And like a lot of the stuff that we're gonna say is from either our experience, our personal opinion, and maybe just stuff that we've read on. Now I've never seen, you know, Doppelganger or anything like that, even if I said that right. But with the shadow figures, that's a common one that we see a lot of times, especially historical locations and stuff. But what's your thoughts on some of these?
Well, like the doppelganger, what they, I have talked to a woman who has seen one. She said it was her sister, and she saw her sister downstairs, and then she walked in and her sister was in bed asleep. Now, what I read, some people believe that this is some kind of a warning. Sometimes bad things happen after somebody sees a doppelganger. I don't know. I have been. I think a lot of people have been in the position where they've said, "Well, I just saw you," and they said, "Well, you couldn't have seen me. I wasn't there." And
one thing I'll throw out there too for the people that are maybe unfamiliar with it, a doppelganger is basically when a couple different things could happen. Like she was to start to discuss with this particular individual, there was her sister, and then she saw her sister, actually her living sister, in a different location.
right.
It's like two of the same person basically. Now, the rumor is that if you see your own doppelganger, that means you're close to death, or you know you could possibly die. That's what the theory is behind it. I'm not sure if you heard that or not, or familiar with that, but yeah. But seeing somebody of that, you know, we have it all the time on location where we'll be, and it might just be our own senses playing with our mind, basically, where we'll be talking to one of our teammates, and all of a sudden you're in a dark room, of course, and then you think that person's right next to you. And then all of a sudden you hear their voice coming from a different area of the building, or, you know, something where it's like, wait a minute, you're not here next to me? Then I just saw you physically. I was talking to you, or something of that nature or magnitude. And is it that person's doppelganger? I'm not sure. Is it a spirit manipulating that thing, or is it just a figment of our imagination? You know, it's things we have to ask ourselves on location. I mean, I've never personally ran into my own of the, you know, supernatural kind. I've ran into somebody that looks like me, supposedly, you know, in real life. My living doppelganger, you know, and no, it wasn't me in the mirror or anything like that. It was actually a person that people confuse us for being the same person. So it's kind of scary, but kind of interesting at the same time. We actually became good friends, so. But yeah, I mean, as far as that goes, I don't know exactly where I stand on that point. I mean, like we said, we do have experiences. So,
Right.
What do you think?
I mean, it's definitely for sure the possibility of them, whatever entity spirit we're dealing with, it is manipulating us and what we're seeing, what we're dealing with, what we're thinking at that time, possibly. You guys talked about it, and I heard the stories out in Oklahoma about possibly that could happen, and it all had to do with like the Indian lore.
Right.
Crossing over that creek,
Right.
and giving an offering. If you don't, there's a possibility, you know, you could be taken, and what is replaced is a shell of yourself.
Right.
I mean, that's a story that sticks out in my mind with the Doppelganger story. And, you know, that you're already dead, but the shell comes back for, 2 weeks and dies, or something along those lines.
We kind of touched base on this. We hear this throughout the podcast from here until probably eternity. Refer to the Oklahoma case. It was the book that we showed last week, The Agony of the Remains, that you can purchase anywhere, basically. The books are sold online, you know, through Kindle, whatever you want to get. But this case touched us in so many ways, and one of the stories behind it was that he was talking about the doppelganger, and it was through this creek that kind of divided where the property ends and where a set of caves exists, where they've seen all kinds of different entities down there. Now, if you cross this, you know, this creek, it's probably maybe 15 feet. Maybe cross, something like that. It's not very big, but it's big enough you have to cross over carefully.
And it's not even really deep.
It's not deep, no. Not when we're usually there.
So when I was looking at it, I thought, okay.
Right.
I could throw across it.
Sure.
And, you know, we had to step through rocks to get it and even, you know.
Right. And
step in it, but.
The story of the doppelganger here was, as you cross this river, like he was saying, if you don't give an offering, that your doppelganger, or what looks like your doppelganger, will come out of that creek and grab you, take you under the current. And basically you'll come up, but it won't be you. It'll be the doppelganger replacing you. You're dead. You're dead, basically, yeah. And this doppelganger is taking over.
I think I remember you telling me that story.
Yeah. Right. So now I've never had any problems with that down there. I've never really experienced anything, which doesn't mean anything.
Are you sure? Are you sure we're talking to you?
The question is, are you sure?
So when you guys crossed that, did you guys give any offerings?
I've never personally. It's kind of more of the owners, basically, of the land. They've gone throughout history and basically did what they needed to do along the way to help, you know, give them an offering, since they have to coexist and live there. We probably should have.
That's interesting.
But
Especially since we're on their property.
I have.
Yeah.
Every time I've crossed that creek, I left a tobacco offering.
Okay.
Yeah, I watched you do that.
Okay.
I watched you do that.
So we are making a conscious effort. Not all of us, but most of us, you know. I mean, so there is.
He
offering. Yeah, so
sacrificed a cigarette for it. You know?
that is true. And that's familiar. So, what else did you have on your list down there, Michelle?
Poltergeist.
Poltergeist. That's a great one. Let's talk about that for a little bit here.
So,
go and kind of tell us what
Poltergeist.
it is.
Well, I'm asking you.
Oh.
Since I've never personally, and for anybody who knows me, and if you're tuning in with us, I love this, and I've been doing it for several years, even before I joined the team. But as these guys will tell you, I'm probably the last to hear something, the last to encounter anything. And if I do, it's like, you know, I'm so excited, but they're all like, oh yeah, saw that yesterday, you know. But for the Poltergeist situation, you know, I've read about it. Everyone's seen movies on it. I've never personally been involved in one that I knew until we actually, you know, went to a private location.
Right.
Where it was determined by the group, and I wasn't there for the final investigation, but everything that was happening there, you know, is it human? Is it a human haunting? I mean, because I've heard poltergeist could be a human haunting that is like just somebody bad, somebody evil who's got the power to do whatever they want to. Is it that, or what is it?
Well, I mean, the case you're referring to was a private home, and things kind of got a little weird. I mean, from the get-go, I mean, we went into this case blindly, not knowing as 100% what we were facing. We figured it was just a typical haunting. When we got there, they told us the stories, the claims. One thing that always struck out from the day one was they said that they were spiritual people. They had 2 Bibles. They each had their own Bible. Husband and wife had a Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them came up missing, have never been found, which kind of struck me a little odd. I mean, and you could tell by the genuine, their voice, how genuine they were, that it wasn't, no, I misplaced it and I never seen it. No, this is, I need my Bible because I'm concerned, So we took that into consideration, did, multiple investigations there. Yeah, I can't remember how many we went back and did, but, each time more pieces of the puzzle were kind of forthcoming. I can tell you one thing, it didn't like us there.
No.
Being there, should I say. It let us know.
Was this local?
No.
Okay.
No.
It was
out
in
of town.
Kansas, but
Yeah,
it was
in Kansas.
a drive, about 2.5 hours away.
Yeah.
Basically, it told us on 2 different locations to die on 2 different recording devices that weren't in the same room at the same time, and it was really weird because of the fact that we were on outside one of our breaks we do in between during the investigation, let the house kind of settle a little bit before we go back and tackle it again. Waiting to come up, pound on the outside door while everybody was out of that side of the house and tell us, "Let me out of here." And it was just the craziest thing I've ever heard. And it's captured on our audio. It's, we all heard it. We were standing by the door. We're like, "Did you just hear that?" We didn't hear the actual talking. We just heard the banging on the door, and there was nobody inside.
Wow.
So we went back in and we did more of an investigation. And over the course of time, things were getting moved on us. I mean, you would set something down and it would basically disappear.
Is that the one where you were talking about, you set a Pepsi can or somebody did and went somewhere, came back in and it was gone?
No.
On the can?
No, that's a different one, but that could be a case of a poltergeist activity where things are being manipulated and moved on its own.
'Cause that happened to me.
We've had definitely a shadow person come down the hallway and kind of.
Yeah.
It was like confronting us, like it was like we heard a groan moaning at us, like basically it was a moan. But the owners who were sitting in the main living room, and this was one of the back bedrooms, we were all sitting out kind of the end. The owners itself, basically, you could hear them in the background say, "Hey, this thing's growling at us," 'cause like it's like kind of a warning, like, how dare you let these people in the house.
Interesting.
This is one case that we could physically see it moving around in broad daylight. That's the one where we were outside the house on the property, and I was on one corner of the property. We had one of our other team members not even seeing what was from my angle that could see it, but we both saw the same shadow. I saw it run from behind the house to the street towards me, and I lost it, and she saw it from the porch on from behind the house, not knowing it was coming anyways, and ran towards me, she said. Well, that same night, 3 different people almost simultaneous can't say the word, simultaneous, at the same time, got shoved violently.
Right. Which you caught on recorder.
Yes. The thing that really weirded me out about that, I didn't care about the pushing, the shoving. I kind of asked for it, so I mean, that's what I get. It was a little girl's voice coming through telling one of the girls on our team, "Don't cry, mommy," which was kind of odd.
Yeah.
So it was like it was manipulating itself to.
It morphed all the time, from the stories to, I mean, we were seeing, like you said, we were seeing the shadows. You could see it moving throughout the house. We were seeing it outside, running from one house to another house. You could actually see like a shadow figure. I mean, I saw, along with 2 others that was standing there, like an actual figure running from one house to the other, and you could see arms, legs, all moving. It was very quickly, but you could see the motion.
Right.
And it was going from one house to another, and the house that it was coming from was a abandoned farmhouse.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And when we were inside, even they had bunk beds down at the end of the hall. We had the grid light, it's a laser light lighting up the whole room.
Mm-hmm.
I sat there at the front of the hallway looking down and just was watching. I heard movement down there, and with my own eyes, I could see someone moving off the bed and climbing down and under the bed.
Oh, that's right. Right.
And it was breaking all the grid lights, and it was actually doing that.
Yep.
And I couldn't explain anything. It was my first time seeing that in a private home.
Right.
And it just kept getting weirder from that point. But there you're having children's voices. There, the family was seeing adults, from a farmer to a different adult male with an adult woman walking into the room. We were seeing shadows. I mean, it was just changing all the time.
Yeah. And what made it such a poltergeist haunting was the fact that it could manipulate objects or people, or it could physically move things, including you. So I mean, yes, other entities can do that. Other types of hauntings can do that, but the fact is that the basically the threat behind it, where it was violently kind of a thing where not your typical haunting. So there's one particular incident where we were all in the living room kind of doing our thing investigating, and they had a kitchen right off the living room, and all of a sudden something just violently slammed one of the cabinets in there. And I'm not sure if you were there for that part of it.
I know
multiple times, but
yeah, I went to every single one except for the very last one.
Okay, so that thing just decided to make itself known, and the owner, who was when we first got to know him, he was a very, very mild-mannered guy. Wouldn't really talk much to us initially, but his wife would. Till after we left, he became so aggressive that it was just like it was manipulating him too. That I mean, the fact when that thing slammed that cabinet door, he jumped up just like out the couch and went to go front it, which is totally out of character for him. I mean, his wife was surprised. She looked at him like, "What are you doing?"
So you guys recognize his changes in him over the period of time that you guys went back to do more investigations?
Right. Yeah, it was just one of those things where it was enough to wear and tear on it. It eventually ended up dividing the family, unfortunately. That's why we don't have the opportunity to go back there anymore, because he just basically cut us off, and she moved away out of state, and we decided just let it be, basically. You know, if they ever need our help, they know where they can reach out to us, or anybody for that matter.
And I'm still in contact with her.
Right, same here. Yep.
But as for the the marriage and stuff, sadly it did die off for them. But maybe for the better.
Has anything followed her? Did she move out or stay in the house?
She moved out of state.
She moved out.
Haven't been told one way or the other.
Right, and I didn't want to press the issue, with her. If she's comfortable and happy and things seem to be on the up and up for her, then I give her all the blessing I can possibly give her.
But what do you think a poltergeist is?
It's just basically some kind of entity or spirit that has a capability to act. It can be violently, it can be anything that, it has definitely powerful enough to materialize at any given moment to where it can move, manipulate things. Has a tendency to be more violent in nature, and it's different from your typical hauntings.
And it's intelligent.
Yeah, it's very, very intelligent. It knows what it's doing. It has a purpose to be there that it warrants. You're gonna be there. I mean, it's gonna exist whether we want it there or not, or the owners want it there or not. I mean, it's not going anywhere. It's hard to get rid of. So
it's gonna snatch you through the TV.
So
only in Hollywood.
So basically, what we've talked about here for people that are just tuning in and stuff, so they can get a better view, just as myself. We've talked about the basic haunting,
right?
Which is basically something that you're seeing repeat itself over history, over time, and then you've got what is called a poltergeist, which is something that is actually showing itself. It's slamming doors, possibly. It's growling. It's making noises. So let me ask you this question. To me, back before I even got involved in this, if somebody ever mentioned poltergeist, that meant bad, because of the movie Poltergeist that we saw. Right. So for you two that have been doing this for such a long time, is a poltergeist, can it be positive? Because when you hear poltergeist, it makes you nervous, like that's a bad thing. So viewers out there that are tuning in, is a poltergeist always going to be bad?
I mean, to be honest, when I first, I figured it was just a Hollywood thing. I really didn't think it was anything for real. So I was a big skeptic on anything like that. I mean, seriously, I figured demonic or demonic, intelligent, residual. Those are my three things that I went to. But until that house, I never really thought about it until these two, talked about it and was telling me their conclusion on it. But from everything that I've read and everything, and just listening and being at that house, to me, I feel it manipulates. Therefore, it can't be good.
Right.
Especially if it's manipulating you to do things, to fear it, to think a certain way. I mean, it's changing you almost.
So then, what do they consider something that's not negative? But let's say you've got somebody that always hides something on you, or your coffee cup, like situations we've had here.
Casper. They
find their coffee cup upside down, or but it's not. Is that still considered a poltergeist?
Not necessarily. I mean, most of the time a poltergeist is going to be more, like we talked about, a little bit more malevolent in nature, where it's going to be it can do things like scratch you, violently. It can push you. It can throw you. It can throw things at you. It can bite you. I mean, it can do pretty nasty stuff to you, which is it's close to almost, in some cases, bordering on demonic. Which the only thing different from demonic is it is what it is. It's a demon haunting. So. As far as what happens in locations that we're at, where, like you said, a coffee cup getting turned over, it might just be something a mischievous, kind of an entity. Maybe a child, like, look at me, I'm tipping stuff over, pushing things, kind of.
So then, as we go into the next haunting entity,
Mm-hmm.
is that more of the positive side of things?
Well, what's the difference between spirit, entity? Is that basically the same thing? I mean,
it is. I mean,
it's
it's just another name for ghost. Basically, you got your ghost, you got your paranormal, you got your, entity, spirit. Sometimes it may just derive from the nature of it. I mean, is it a former person that's, once was here, human in humanoid form, and now it's their spirit left behind, interacting with you on a daily basis, or just being here, like we said, residually, or it could be, an elemental, which is made of the, when you figure elements, the earth, water, air, ground, the whole fire, that's kind of it's a darker entity, but it's not one that's it's gonna be here regardless. Also, I mean, it's not gonna move. We can't do anything about it. It's here because it's supposed to be here. As far as positive, I mean, I'm not sure if any haunting is really positive. I mean, it's kind of in the eye of the beholder.
Right.
I mean, as far as, because we enjoy that kind of stuff, if the homeowner, the business owner may not like it, but it may be something that you can't leave.
Right.
I mean,
with doing the tours that I do here in Wichita, it's you do the research and you hear the stories from all the locations. You hear. Basically, everyone's like, well, why is this place haunted? What makes it haunted? And it all goes back to, like, the tragedy, the history of it, like, whether it was murder, suicide, a fire, love triangle, so passion, something just tragic that happened, or you do have just the, like I said, the emotional thing that is just someone being in a certain location because it was their favorite place, maybe.
Right.
You have pointing. Sorry, I lost my track of thought. Case in point for that would be here in Wichita, the Broadview. Just mention that. The story of Clarence. It was tragedy. And that's the one that they're seeing. That's the one that they keep, and you've heard me talk about this 100 times on the tours and stuff. You guys have, because you haven't been on my tour.
I have. It's been a while, but I
That's
have.
right.
Anyways, go ahead, sorry.
We wrote the tour.
But Clarence is the one that they contribute to haunting the entire hotel, and it's huge.
Right.
It's 8 stories?
Something like that, plus basement.
Plus basement.
Is that counting the hidden?
Well, yeah.
There's tunnels. Yep.
And tunnels
Yep.
that reportedly went underneath the. But that's a whole other story.
Right.
But Clarence is the one that they contribute everything to. He was a younger man playing poker, illegal at that era, shot and killed. And from that day forward, they actually see him walking around. He messes with you. Why? Maybe because it was his age.
Right.
He was young, cocky. And that's what he does, is he taunts people by just kind of pranking them and having fun with them, because why? That's where he
Maybe
is.
he's bored.
Could be absolutely bored, who knows?
Right.
It's just the fact that he came into town, and this is where he was. I mean, I don't know if they know too much about his backstory, but he's the one that they see and contribute to everything, from the elevators to phones to water faucets to everything. Human being, and they used to have a plaque on the wall that actually said, if you stay here, this is what you will see.
Right.
And they had his name, date when it all happened. It's all basically revolves around tragedy of some kind, whether it's a broken heart to death, taken suddenly. But it all
So
contributes to that.
So then for viewers and stuff that are on this, where would you put that? What category?
That'd probably be more of an intellectual haunting, just because he's intelligent. He can't interact with anyone that's around. It's people physically see him. He makes it a point to be known if you get too close, or if he doesn't like what you're doing. So he's definitely intelligent.
Yeah, I mean.
So the three that we've discussed, does that fall into any of those categories?
Well, the intellectual.
Just intellectual.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he's able to, like I said, have a conversation with you, whether it be good or bad, or he doesn't fit the negative entity. It's just
Okay.
the fact that he's there. I mean, he did his time on Earth, and now he's
He
forever
he
embedded.
scares a lot of people.
Yeah.
He does.
Yep.
Interesting stories coming out of there.
But I mean, that goes over in any town, and every town has their stories. Every town has their tragedies. So
Sure. Definitely. I mean, there's times you're gonna have an entity. Well, the best way, I can't talk either. You got your itis. The best way to describe some entities is how they were on Earth is more than likely how they're gonna be in the afterlife, possibly. Where if you were a happy-go-lucky person, you're gonna be a happy-go-lucky spirit in theory. If you were just a grumpy old person all your life, hated the world, that's probably how you're gonna come off cross in the afterlife. We've noticed that quite a bit of locations where an entity, where they said, oh, he didn't get along with the neighbors, he was a total, just a total mean old person, and, scowled at everybody. And
Right.
we've seen locations where we've seen a scowling old man, and he would growl at us, I don't remember the house in Wichita where you and I were. It was in the basement, and the guy had a step stool, that if you got up on there, and
yeah.
the owner was up there, and he saw this guy rush at him and kind of almost knock him off. And well, you and I were sitting there in the basement at this particular house, and the lights were, he had a workshop in the back corner of the basement, and we were looking and talking to him that night, and pitch black, we couldn't see anything. All of a sudden something comes up out of nowhere and just gives us the meanest growl we've ever heard in our life. And you and I look at each other like, did you just hear that? And he's like, yeah. And we caught it on audio, and just hearing it alone was incredible. But the thing that really gave it some clarity, or gave it some validity, was right before that, two of our other investigators were just in that area, and we have a millimeter that picks up on, a change in energy, basically, where it picks up temperature, it picks up the electric-magnetic field, EMF, and the thing basically pegged out. It was over 200 and some, I can't remember exactly the number, but it was real high, and that's something that never should happen. Most times, a room will have a 0.0 baseline reading, they call it, milligauss, and temperature can fluctuate depending on the situation. Well, this thing just spiked, and you could hear it right before we walk in, right after them. It's like, oh my God! Her reaction was so like, wow, this thing just took off on us, this machine that we have. And then you and I hear this growl afterwards. So it kind of gave it some scientific credibility, basically, because we have something reacting with such a high velocity of energy that has enough force to growl at you and I afterwards. So, like I said, he was a grumpy man in life, so he could be a grumpy man basically in the afterlife. So that's just one of the type of hauntings that, basically, like I said, it doesn't fit any of those categories other than it was intellectual, or intelligent, should I say. It just kind of did its own thing.
Right. What else do you have down there?
She said
Next.
Well, the demonic.
Yep.
Demonic. So, that's the one that well, Hollywood loves that one.
It's the money maker.
It's something I don't think we've dealt with a lot per se when it comes to. I mean, it's like a rarity for us to even find it, to be involved in something. I mean, I know that one farmhouse that we went to, that was probably my closest thing to ever being around something that was just pure, for lack for a better word, just evil.
Yeah.
It didn't, it made you sick.
Yep.
We were all walking, nervously through the house, and this is before you two came on. Even Jeremiah wasn't even there.
Right.
And I just remember it was manipulating us in a way that it was almost a fear constantly inside.
Right, we were definitely on constant edge when we were in this place, as far as we didn't know what to think or how to feel. It was just something that manipulated us a little bit. I mean, it was interesting. I mean, it was dark, definitely a dark spirit.
I mean, right off the bat, we were sitting in the living room of this 2-story farmhouse. That's when Ben and Claire were with us.
Right.
And Jan.
Yep.
And you and I. And we were sitting, and I remember sitting there, and we're just getting going on everything, and we're talking. And that's when we all heard footsteps up above.
Right.
Just pacing back and forth. So Ben and I, it was Ben and I who actually got up and went to the bottom of the stairs and hollered up, and the steps just stopped.
Yeah.
And waited for a moment, and then it started to go back again, back and forth. And it just grew from there that night.
Sure.
From shadows walking on the other side of doors, and you could hear it. You could hear the thumping sounds from outside. Voices that we couldn't. I mean, it was just going everywhere, pinging everywhere.
Right. It was like basically pacing, and the thing about demonic hauntings is it's. I mean, if you look at the word, it's a demon. I mean,
Right.
it's something that's basically over our head,
Right.
basically. There's a laundry list of demons out there. One thing I always have been told, experienced, basically whatever. If you know the name of the demon, you definitely don't want to say it, because it's just giving it a summoning to say, hey, I know who you are, welcome to my life, and whether you want it there or not, it's going to be there. So you got to be careful when you have a demonic haunting.
And
But-
when we were doing the upstairs using the ghost box,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if y'all know the ghost box. I'm sure you've seen them on TV. if
Right.
you-
It's just a modified radio that plays
Right.
really fast over stations that if it's a voice coming through, it shouldn't go over 10 stations of the same sound voice as far as pitch and tone.
And it was saying names that you didn't like.
Yeah, it told us who it was. I mean, it.
Because I just stopped. I was just listening to it, and I'm thinking, yay, it said a name, and
Right.
I see Leo's reaction, like, oh, that's not good. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it wouldn't have
You
been
know?
such a bad thing, but and it may not have been demonic. It just the fact that it was presenting itself as such that you got to be careful. I mean, you asked, like I said, hey, is anybody here? And they
Well-
said, yes, I am here, and I'm going to show you what I am or who I am.
And it cursed at us.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And remember, outside, it actually was throwing things at us,
Yeah.
too, when we got outside to
Yeah.
our cars. Well, you could hear the limbs breaking off, being tossed at us, and rocks and stuff is pinging off our cars.
Right.
And everything, and it was just happening all around us. We
Yeah.
had no idea
Well,
what was going on.
It was definitely affecting the elements around us. I mean, inside and out. Like when we were outside talking between one of our infamous breaks we talk about all the time.
But we had to.
Remember the sound that came out of nowhere from? We were out in the middle of nowhere, at a farmhouse out in this remote town, and there's this unearthly sound coming from who knows where. We could tell a direction we think it was coming
Outside
from.
or
Yeah,
inside?
outside.
Yeah, we were outside.
It was like I can't even describe it. It was a vibrating, kind of a loud, supersonic sound that was just kind of in waves. And whatever reason, we decided to go towards it, like always, typical ghost hunting crew, go towards danger. And the closer we got, of course, the closer it came to us. So it was enough to where we said, wait a minute, came to our senses. But in the moment, we hadn't. But we decided we need to stop what we're doing. We backed up, carefully, not to turn and run, but to keep focused on the direction it was coming from in case something comes out of thin air or whatever. We backed up, went inside the house, and it was the only time we ever had that experience of this type. But to this day, I have no clue what it was. I can't even describe the sound. It was just a wave of sound that was just pulsating out of thin air, basically, and it was drawing us in. You were gonna say something?
I was just saying, and the claims to the house were, we're seeing full apparitions from 2 different types of females, whether they were inside, outside of the house. They
Right.
had a creature that was peering in on them.
With glowing red eyes,
And they said in this, where she saw the creature's face was inside of a garage that went up to the kitchen window.
Yeah, because basically what they did is they had an existing house structure. They built an extra shell of a house around it to give it more depth. And this thing was inside where the new garage on the outside of the house was. It was inside her physical garage, staring right at her, basically looking at her through the window. She said she looked up, saw it, and immediately looked down because she didn't want to know what it was. But she described it with a demonic, kind of a devilish face with these glowing red eyes that were piercing through her. And she looked down, looked back up, and as soon as she looked back up, it was gone. So.
And she boarded up the window after that.
And it was enough to where when we were there, I made note of where the location was, and it had a very sinister feeling just being in that garage. I mean, it was tough. It was one of the tougher cases I've ever been associated with because of the fact that we know the backstory behind it to a degree.
Right.
It was enough to where it was affecting her only son that lived with her, that it was making him behave in a manner that was not himself, that he ended up chasing her off the property in a very, it wasn't his voice coming through.
What she said was when she was running away after he attacked her, because it was just mother and daughter living there.
You mean
son? Son and mother living there.
Right.
Pardon me. Because every time I tell the story, I can just picture it in my head and hear the voice.
Yeah.
Because how she explained it to me is that she ran from the house barefoot, running down the dirt road, and as she's running out, and it's nighttime. I don't know how late it was, but she's running down the dirt road. She could hear someone running after her because she could hear the footsteps, and all she heard from behind her was, "Come back, Mommy." And it wasn't her son's voice.
It was a childlike voice coming through.
It was
very
adult
while he was chasing her.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or something.
Well,
something. She never looked back to see.
Yeah, she didn't want to turn and look. The thing also, though, is before what led to this event of her running out of the house is he did attack her. She fell asleep on the couch in the living room, their family room. Woke up, looked up, and saw him standing there. But then when she's telling us the story, she paused and she goes, "But it wasn't him. His face was somebody else's face."
She said, it looked so weird.
It wasn't her.
It wasn't
her son, basically. It was somebody else's face on his body. And she's like, "What are you doing?" And then he just commenced to start beating this woman up for no reason.
And we saw the dents in the wall where the elbows were flung and stuff like that.
It was a violent struggle.
Yeah, it was.
So where's this guy at today?
Not sure.
He is actually in a insane asylum, basically. Yeah, it drove him mad, whatever it was, that he had to be off the property. After that night, he assaulted her. Cops and somebody saw her running down the road, on this dirt road, and called the police.
And she hid out in the field until like 3-4 in the morning or something like that.
Right.
Okay, I remember you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's that one.
And yeah, it was just something that that was pretty crazy, just because she did have 2 other daughters that didn't live there at the time, and they would not go into the house ever. They knew something bad was there without her mom even having to tell them. The mom having to tell them, "Hey, we have all this stuff going on." Because for a while they wouldn't even talk about it, and once she came clean about it, then they're like, "Oh my gosh, we've been meaning to tell you this for a long time now. This is what we feel." And they would. Even the night we were there to even get inside the house, she gave us the keys. She's like, "I'll lock the door for you guys, but I'm not going in. Here's the keys. I'll just lock it up when you guys leave. You're free to do whatever you want to the house."
That was our first night, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I waited for you guys for an hour as you guys were coming in. Yeah, and she left me.
Yeah. Yep. So,
I felt a little uneasy.
I did too.
Yeah, I ate my dinner.
Yep.
I was just looking around, kept swearing to myself. I could hear a conversation happening, so I got in my car. I walked around a bit, but.
The only thing I don't know if it was a true demonic haunting is I didn't get a specific demon name. I just got the form of the word Satan. So it could have been a malevolent haunting where it was portraying to be a demon, possibly. Could have been something evil like that, maybe. Go ahead, you're going to say something.
To go with that, did I ever tell you what happened when Brendan, who's not here tonight?
But he was there last week.
Yeah, he was here. He's
the Bigfooting guy.
Bigfooting guy. When him and I actually drove out there one day, we we were actually, him and I were actually working a case and doing some field research for Bigfoot in Kansas.
Right.
And, you know, he missed both cases that we went out there to this property, so he's like, well, show me where the house is, you know, show me. And I'm like, okay, you know, as far as I know, she's out of it, and she moved away, but I don't know if anybody else has moved in. So we drove out,
Right.
and when we drove up, you know, gate was open, no cars, so we drove in. It's like 3 in the afternoon, so we drove up there, just kind of, we were just walking around outside, and it was a huge farm lot and everything. It's got a few trailers, and we walked over, and in front of the barn that they had right there, it wasn't your typical barn, it was all metal.
Mm-hmm.
But right there on the ground, and he found it first, it was a circle of stones with skulls,
Right.
animal bones and stuff
Right.
all within, and 2 spears on either side. We didn't know what to think of that, so we kind of just backed off. We were like, okay. No,
Probably a good idea.
Yeah, because we
Yeah.
saw that.
Clear cut warning of some
Here I'm
sorts,
looking
yeah.
around going, okay. So with everything that I know we went through
Right.
in that, and then seeing that, you know, we're both driving away just going, what the hell was that? You know, like
Yeah.
what, so somebody's obviously going there to do something, whether it's calling something in possibly, so whether it is demonic, who knows.
Right.
But when we saw that, it was enough to say, okay, we're out. And I haven't been back since. I haven't even stopped in to see, you know, or slowed down to even see, is anybody there, any cars, you know. I'm not going to bother with it, so, you know.
Right.
But I just remember that, and that's kind of where I ended it with that place.
Okay, I've got a question.
Yes,
too.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Usually they think of demonic, they come through a portal or a gateway. Ouija board.
Uh-huh.
Do you,
What does it,
do you think that Ouija boards can be a portal to bring in?
Really, almost anything can be. I mean, even the little spirit box we use, we're inviting something to come through. So, yes, a Ouija board, if you buy off a shelf, is a toy. It's made by Parker Brothers or whatever. But if you're physically asking, it's the act of physically, hey, I want you to come through. And there's a proper way to start a Ouija board session. There's a proper way to end it, to close off that portal. The thing where most people make the mistake of is they don't close it off.
They don't
And
say goodbye.
next thing you know, this thing is, you unleashed it to whatever. It could attach itself to you. It could physically attach itself to that board. It could be a numerous amount of things that could happen.
Has anybody ever read the directions on that thing? Does it tell you how to do that? Warning.
you know, kids on up, you know, it's good to know. But you never know exactly who you're talking to either.
Yeah, it's just it. I mean, just because it tells you, hey, my name is Steve, is it really Steve? It could be, you know,
Bob.
or it could be
Could be
something.
Bob.
Could be something, you know, a
Think it's
little bit
Steve.
darker, a lot darker. Because I've seen many videos. I know, of course, in this day and age, a video may just be. It could be whatever. It could be CGI. It could be whatever. But I've seen the sources I've looked at gives a lot more credibility to me. So this person does the Ouija board a lot on camera when he goes to even some of the famous hauntings or, you know, locations across the United States. This is what he does, which I'm not for or against. I mean, it's just a piece of what he does, and he knows how to properly use it and end it. He's done it in the Sally House, you know, here in Atchison, Kansas.
Interesting.
And he's got some interesting answers. And one of the most famous hauntings, or one of the most famous uses of this Ouija board was he contacted a very well-known demon. I'm not going to give the name, and I advise you not to go look for it for reasons. It's a demon. It's a known demon. He contacted it, and he had 2 or 3 people with him doing this, and one of the actual people that were with him was adversely affected on the spot by it. It was temporary possession, basically, what happened. So, can Ouija board definitely be used as one of those portal opening tools? Of course. I mean, like I said, anything I can makeshift a Ouija board out of this table right now, and we could probably get some great results, but I'm not going to do that. I mean, all it takes is, you know, the simplest things, and next thing you know, you open that portal that you may not know how to close. So, Go ahead, you're
For the you said that you saw some good results. Is it just from the words?
It's the spelling of the words. It's the
But you
way.
don't think it's manipulated by the person who's doing it?
Can it be? Of course, yeah. Of course it can.
I mean, most of the time, all the time.
Right, but think about when we use a spirit box or any kind of
Right.
mechanical device in our hand. Can those be manipulated easily?
I'm sure.
If you have a walkie-talkie, if you have a cell phone, if somebody's driving by on the highway, like a semi truck that has a CB radio, can it come through and it sounds like something else to us?
Is a CB or something like that, or a walkie that we have come through the box the way we're hoping, because it's changing channels so fast?
It's possible. I mean, it's a possibility.
We need to test that out.
Yeah, we definitely do. I mean, we have
We
done
need
it
to
with
test that
other. We've done it with walkie-talkies, and usually they're different frequencies, which helps. I mean, they're different hertz, megahertz, whatever you want to call it, a different range on the scope, so that does help eliminate some of that stuff. But it is a radio. It's a wave transmitting device where it's going to pick up on some things possibly. I mean, we've had it where it came through on our devices where it sounds electronic, where it's some kind of robotic sounding thing, and I know we're not buying robots, so what is that? Something's manipulating it, it's coming through. We've had it where it sounds like it's a real heavy vibration, like some kind of wave manipulation, and once again, we're not buying anything that should be making that, and then we've had on location this same device come through and say somebody's name on the team. More than one location, different places, where the only radio station being picked up at the time was a Mexican radio station, Spanish-speaking station, and this thing, as clear as day, says one of the team members' names that shouldn't be, and could we ask for it? So you say somebody's name in this room, and sure enough,
Especially when it
this
says
house,
specific name and
Right.
it says the entire full name,
proper
not
name,
just,
right, the full
you know,
proper name.
like
Like
Ben.
Benjamin
Yeah,
like
that's-
Ben.
instead of Ben.
Right.
Benjamin.
Right.
So I mean, anything any of those tools, can be used for a good form of communication. I mean, even our little digital auto recorders, we use our cameras, our handheld cameras. I mean, think about it, we're capturing this spirit in some way, shape, or form, and it's transmitting to us. So
What we should do is test everything. I don't say I'm gonna test out a Ouija board or anything, because I have never touched one in my life. I don't really plan on doing it, but at
Right.
the same time, we do the ghost box, and
Right.
we use it every case we do. So
Right, and some of the original Ouija boards were they were human bones. I mean, the thing that made the little, I can't remember what it's called, the dial, whatever.
right,
I mean, the boards were, made of human, basically, and that's how
yeah.
it kind of got tied into, I think, the macabre or the paranormal.
You go up to Atchison,
Mhm.
Kansas, and they're at the in their museum in the Chamber of Commerce.
Right.
In Atchison, they actually have an old Ouija board under glass, all set up. It's like one of the originals from, I think, before Parker Brothers, or maybe it's, but it is old looking, but they have a story to it and everything too. But it's,
Right.
So I've seen what the old ones really look
Yeah.
like. It's fascinating, but
Right. And it seems like demonic hauntings always come through really clear on Ouija boards. I don't know what it is. If it's just the act of that you're opening that portal even bigger than it already is.
playtime.
Yeah, I mean, you get a lot of good results.
So what's your thought on, I've talked to people that have used the Ouija board and they try to, they say they blindfold themselves or blindfold the other one across them and it just stops.
I see. That's a good point, because there is a thing called.
So that right there, does that say they're coming through? I mean,
Is
because
it-
I won't lie, I've done the Ouija board,
Of course you do.
100
Right.
times, sorry,
Right.
but, and I've actually done that with somebody where we were in contact and then the other person, so I knew if it was
Right.
working or not because I knew what I was capable of.
Right.
And he put the bandana on and I couldn't get anything going on.
Yeah.
And I was trying, the minute we took it off, we were good to go.
There
It started right up again.
There has been scientific things where people, like you said, being blindfolded, have stopped it because it's their mind, kind of a mind over matter thing, where they're
Mhm.
actually manipulating it to move. Like, you may not think you're moving it, but your brain physically is telling your
Right.
hands and your body to move it, whether it be, I mean, it's just kind of a way of, I can't think of the actual term is. I should have, if I'd even asked that, I would have probably got you the
Right.
proper term.
Right.
There was a study about that where it did block it from moving, basically,
Okay.
and I thought you were talking about a different experiment, but no, it was another experiment that somebody
Yeah.
did with that too. So,
Yeah.
So what we've talked about demonic, residual, intelligent to shadow figures to
poltergeist activity.
poltergeist activity. You also have animal. You have animals.
Right.
People see, hear. Case in point, we went to a house where I think we were all there. Were you there, Jeremiah?
I've been to lots of them. I don't.
Okay. It was Wilson. Wasn't where our main place or anything. It was a different location there in town.
Oh yeah, I wasn't at the investigation. I was there at the reveal.
That's right.
Yeah,
But
that's right.
Yeah.
as soon as we got there, they told us about there's we have a black cat. Well, we had a black cat.
Right.
Cat still comes around, and we hear it, and everyone's like, "Oh, does it come to the door? Do you have another one?" No, we don't see anything outside. It's all inside. We'll see it run around. We'll hear it crying, do all that, and of course, once again, I'm the
Right.
last to hear anything, and everyone's inside. I'm outside, grabbing this, grabbing that. I had to run down the street to get some different keys for later that night for the team. I come back and everyone's talking about, oh, we heard it. We heard the cat crying. It's in the house. We
Yeah.
actually heard it. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh,
Once again.
really? Really? You heard that and everything?
Yeah.
So we're setting up equipment, and next thing I hear a cat, and I'm like, does anybody else hear a cat?
Yeah.
And sure enough, you hear a cat crying just like a regular meow, like it's coming from another room. But they didn't have a cat inside the house unless they got it locked up inside the wall.
Yeah.
But, there's been a lot of people who see animal spirits, but I hear
Right.
a lot of people who don't believe that animals have spirits. That, it's part of their religion, which is a whole nother topic.
Right.
But they, to me, animals, they have spirits just the same as we do. They can come back and follow you around, do whatever they want. It's who knows? It's animals. But from cats to dogs to a lot of
Right.
stories on dogs. Man's best friend
Mhm.
and all that. But getting into shortly into our next topic. It's
Right.
you've got a lot of people who have come at me with the idea that no, animals they don't have spirits. Once they're gone, they're gone. I'm like, really? Okay.
And this.
I say look into their eyes and you'll see it.
Yeah.
I think
Like
some-
cats steal your soul. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm joking.
I think most dogs, most animals probably have a better soul and a better spirit than most
I agree.
humans. So.
Yeah, I've been, just to wrap things up on this topic, I been in a case where I was wearing shorts because it's the middle of summer, and one their family pet, it was a dog, passed away, and of course one of the moms had passed away too. I think it was the mom or grandma that passed away in the house. But anyway, they loved that dog, and we were walking around, and something kept just brushing up against me, low to the ground. So I'm like, what is hitting me? So I looked down, used our millimeter. Up here, nothing's hitting me. Go down my leg, and sure enough, it hits on something. I'm like, that's crazy, no way, kind of a thing. Kept bringing it back up, had somebody else do it. I'm feeling this stuff against me, brushing against me, and sure enough, low to the ground every time. And was it the family pet? I don't know. The only thing that really struck me as odd was, besides that, was the fact we used the ghost box again that night. We were just asking questions like normal, and we asked, what's the name of the dog that used to live here? And the dog's name came through. So, I'm not saying it's the dog talking to us, obviously, but this whoever was communicating through this device was telling us the dog's name. So, and it knew it died, so. Okay. So, we're gonna move on to our next set of topics. That was a good talk, guys, by the way. Like I said, anybody out there listening to this has any questions, follow-up questions, please let us know. And we'll definitely answer this, whether it be off there at the end of this podcast, whether it be or during the podcast at the end if we have some time. It may be later on. We'll chat with you outside of this. So the next topic we're looking at is skeptics versus the paranormal.
Here
Which
we go.
Yeah.
This is a touchy subject topic
Yeah.
because of the nature of it. Let me just preface this conversation by saying that we are not here 100% to tell you guys ghosts are real or not real. We are here not to prove hauntings or disprove hauntings. We're just here to let you know that we've had we've been called in by outside sources, whether it be, a business, a private home, and they've asked us to come in and conduct an investigation of some sort because they've had some type of situation going on in their hands, whatever that may be. Well, with that being said, we have seen enough over the years, have documented enough, both scientifically, both personal experience, everything, that we have a pretty strong case one way that we believe that there is such thing as spirits, entity, paranormal, whatever you want to call it. So, but there's always that reverse side of the coin that people don't believe. So, I'll let anybody jump on that case or that topic because I have my own.
Well, I think a point that needs to be made in this discussion, talking about skeptics, is there needs to be a distinction made first off. Whether are we talking about someone like us who approaches this from a skeptical point of view,
Sure.
without just trying to gather evidence as scientifically as possible, or are we just talking about an actual hard-nosed skeptic that just won't believe?
Right.
So yeah, that's what Brendan and I were talking about last night. Whether it's a skeptic who's willing to listen and say, show me, or you've got the closed book minded person who's just scoffs at us and rolls their eyes, walks away, just looks at you and goes, well, this is all crap, right? You're just making it up for fun, right? And yet they call themselves skeptics, but they're not even opening their minds to anything.
They're closed-minded.
Definition, they're not skeptics at that point. They call themselves that, but they're not.
Life is only 6,000 years old, and that's what we're going to stick with. That's a whole nother topic. Sorry. But no, we see it on when we go on the tours.
Right.
When we do the tours, it's just here in Wichita. They get on there and they're like, oh, I love this stuff. My husband hates it, but I love this stuff. And I'll walk up to them while we're either at the cemetery or going back to the bus, and I'll just ask them, how you doing? You enjoying this? Anything you want me to talk about? And they're like, not really into it, or my wife's or my husband's all into this.
They just drag me along.
Yeah, I'm just here. So that's why I like to mix history with it to also help entertain anybody who's on the tour who doesn't care about the hauntings or anything going on, because it's really hard to talk to people who are just looking at you with a blank look, which we get a lot, who can't even open their mind to the idea that there's so many stories since the beginning of time to now all over the world. It's not just happening in someone's backyard or in their basement or something. It's happening all over the world. And I don't know, just trying to explain that to people it's hard, because they're like, well, show me proof. I'm like, well, where do you want me to start? I've got some stuff on my phone. I can, go to our website. We've been places. We didn't just start this yesterday, which a lot of people who are in this field, they didn't start yesterday. Well, maybe some did, but
Yesterday Paranormal.
yeah.
I'm making things up, by the way.
Did they start yesterday?
Apparently so. One thing I'll say.
Start and stop yesterday too.
One thing I'll say is, I think we all kind of have a little bit of skepticism in doing so. Except for this guy. But that's what keeps the hunger alive. That's what keeps me looking for more answers, doing the more research on things, just trying to get more clarity on some of the own personal experiences we've had, some of the cases we've been on. But one of my favorite things is going into a case, especially like the homeowner or business or somewhere, and not knowing that they're skeptic. They just said, hey, we think some things are going on. Okay, cool. And maybe if there's two people there or a family or whatever, and one of them is a huge skeptic audibly to this stuff, not telling us this, his family knows this or their family knows this, and then when they leave, I get a text message, I get a phone call saying, hey, John or whoever was a huge skeptic when you guys came in, and now he's he's a firm believer now, because of what he was able to experience as we did our our investigation, what we've collected along the way and stuff like that. I mean, it's kind of hard to, if you are a huge skeptic, I mean, without being there in the moment, you may not believe it ever, because in this day and age, anything can be manipulated by video, audio. So
Yeah.
I mean, but if they go and experience it firsthand with us,
Yeah,
and
that's
they change their
amazing.
own mind and form their own opinion, that's my favorite.
Yeah,
So,
that's a big thing what I really like about our group is that I've heard many times other groups that are out there, they don't allow anybody to go with them. They don't allow the homeowners to go with them. They don't allow the businesses to go with them, and then they come back with all this evidence and go, here you go. I mean, that's what I really like about us is we invite the family out there.
Right.
We try not to have aunts and uncles and best friends show up, because then it gets too crazy. But if you've got a homeowner of a business or a homeowner, we come out. One of the best stories that I've ever experienced was a local restaurant, and he's always told us that we could use his name, so I'll go ahead and say it was the Candle Club.
Right.
And if anybody's grown up in Wichita, there's a huge story behind the Candle Club and the experiences that they've had there and the people that have come and gone. But one of the coolest stories I ever witnessed was when we weren't there maybe 10, 15 minutes. And the owner, the reason he was bringing us in is because he had some issues going on while he was doing paperwork in his office, and thought, okay, wait a minute, I thought the waitresses left for the night, because he'd hear voices.
Right.
And see things in the monitor while he's finishing up for the night. So anyways, when we got there and we were setting up, actually Jeremiah and Leo and I were standing there, and we were getting ready to put the grid on. And we actually turned it on. I remember I had my hand up here, and I'm looking at Jeremiah going, is this good? Does this look good?
Right.
And all of a sudden, you hear, it said, you hear Leo go, oh my goodness, something just broke the grid.
Right, something manipulated.
Yeah, something manipulated the grid. And,
Right.
and we were all standing there, and you hear loud, clear as day, sorry. And the owner literally stood there, looked at us for about 2 seconds, and you see him turn and leave.
Yeah, he had to leave.
And he goes, because everybody heard it. I mean, it literally apologized
The
when
male voice.
Yeah,
That wasn't
and-
our voice for sure.
Yeah, and so just by having that owner with us, he got
Right.
to experience that. And
Yeah.
I remember following him into his office, and I was like,
Yeah, she was.
are you okay? And he goes, I guess we're done. Because he got what he wanted. He just wanted to know. So, yeah,
10
that was
minutes,
amazing.
10, 15 minutes in.
But he stuck it out with us, and he came out later on and got to experience a lot more, some crazier things that happened that night. That was just, like I said, it's one of those cases where he may have been a skeptic at one point, where he didn't have, I've never had a paranormal experience in my life, and then, like you said, within 5-10 minutes, you got what you asked for.
Because he told me when he actually got a hold of us, he said that, when he first bought it, the people that were, long-term members, they were going, this place haunted. He's going, whatever.
Right.
And then as time passed, he started hearing some of these things, and that's why they called us in to see if we could prove that. So,
I missed it, so I didn't get to
That's all right.
experience that one. But these guys were all there, so
Yeah.
of course I missed it great. But
So, what do you do in a case where, and this may be getting a little off topic because I know I'm trying to avoid the whole business aspect. What do you do when somebody comes up off the street and says, as a matter of factly, hey, I know what you do and I don't believe a word you're saying. So, how would you handle that case? I mean, that particular incident.
when people tell me that they
Yeah.
they don't believe, well, I happened to be at a church when
Right.
I was actually asked that, and it wasn't my church. We were actually invited to speak,
Right.
and I ask them all the time, well, what makes you think this doesn't exist? Because in my opinion, it's not mass hysteria.
Right.
I don't believe in that. I think people are experiencing things all over the place. Whether it's strange lights in the sky,
Right.
little green men, or just they're experiencing all this stuff. And once again, I explain to them as nicely as I can. You've got to, if you've never experience anything, well, that's good for you. That's great.
Right.
You know, I'm happy that you're not. Because a lot of people who are experiencing things, it's at a very vulnerable moment for them.
Right.
You know, they're nervous, they're scared because they can't believe what they're seeing or happening to them. Which I try to explain to people who don't really believe in it that people are scared most of the time.
Right.
They're nervous. It's disrupting their life. This is the reason why we do it.
Right.
This is the reason why we're trying to go in and help. Whether or not we actually believe the story that's being told, it's us trying to figure out. And I said, if you don't believe in it, that's fine.
Right.
But we can offer to show you some of the evidence that we've caught, not to prove it to you, but just say, look what we found. This is what we have found. Listen to this. Watch this. If you can explain this, great. You're understanding something that I don't. But since you can't explain that at all, and yet you're looking at me as I'm playing this for you and watching, it's amazing to watch somebody who's never seen it before go, oh my God.
Right.
Did you really just get that? I'm like, yeah.
Don't you want to go to somebody who's in the church and something like that and just say, you believe in the greatest ghost story ever when a man dies and 3 days later he comes back from the dead? By the way, I'm just joking, by the way. I'm not trying to get anybody up in arms. I'm just making a simple joke. So.
No, but
See the
that
hate
is,
mail now, dude.
no, but that is true.
How
That
much
is
more
true.
than to the point can you get?
Exactly.
I'm kidding. There's no such thing as Ghost Jesus. Ghost Jesus, but not Jesus. So. I'm just joking, guys. I'm not trying to get everybody up in up in a wad. So.
Here comes the chat.
I hope so.
No, but
bring it on.
No, but I'm totally with that. I mean, it is the greatest ghost story, but yet people will come at you and say, "Well, they're not real." Okay, then you tell me if that's real. It's about leaving the bubble of your life. That's what I keep trying to say. You've got to leave the bubble of your life and go toward. And that's what we do, and to help those who are actually needing the help. It's not about going out and trying to prove it to you.
Right.
It's to actually help those who are requesting, hey, every night, 2 o'clock, I see this child staring at me. Can you help me out? Because this is freaking me out.
Right.
Okay, we're game.
Got
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
a thought for you guys to throw out there and discuss. What about the idea that fraud drives the hard-nosed skeptics? And how does our investigative process of debunking and research and such feed into that? Or how does that relate?
Well, the internet is not a friend when it comes to...
But everything you read on the internet is true, though.
Google said it!
It's all real.
One of our followers said, "Hey, Leo, zombie Jesus."
No, I didn't say that. I just said ghost.
That's awesome. Sorry. I never heard that.
No, Came back from 3
Man.
You're saved. Anyway, no, I'm really not hating. Fraud, yeah, that is becoming the hardest thing.
Right.
Before the internet, you had to take, pictures. You're just looking at pictures of the old video cameras or whatever people were capturing things on. And it was a matter of depicting, well, that's light, or that's someone's thumb, or it's now you've got internet that's causing CGI recreations. You've got all kinds of stuff.
Right.
My biggest thing that I'm always telling people, like on the when I'm doing the tours and telling stories and stuff, if you've seen it in Hollywood or you've seen it in the movies, it's probably not what you're gonna see in real life, and it's not gonna happen like that. It's not what you've seen already. It's something that you're gonna experience out of the blue and out of the corner of your eye. But people are faking things all the time, and it's hard to, I've heard of people, trying to use apps to, recreate images. Yes.
Okay, so there was a gentleman who I chatted with. This has been several years ago. A gentleman that I chatted with, and he sent me a picture. I actually, like I said, several years ago, I investigated his house in Augusta, and he caught some decent evidence stuff. He sent me, that's all beside the point. Several weeks later, he sent me a picture of a photo that someone supposedly captured at his workplace. And it was when that Ghost in Photo app on Android or whatever was first starting circulating.
Oh yeah.
And I recognized that right off, and I pointed that out. I said, look, that I'm sorry, but this is what this. It was a little ghost girl standing under
detail.
Right.
Yes, standing under a ladder in this guy's workplace.
Right.
And he said, no, I don't think that's what it is. I said, well, how about this? And I downloaded the app, installed it on my phone, took a picture in my house, put the same girl in the picture, and sent it to him. How did you do that? Well, I just tried to tell you. He still wouldn't believe me, guys. He still wouldn't believe me.
That's another bad thing, because so many people out there, and not to bash on people, but they will believe every little thing that they see on the internet.
Right.
Yeah. Which in turn, we're talking about hard-nosed skepticism that just fuels them.
Yeah.
It's a vicious cycle.
And one way we try to eliminate all kind of fraudulent, findings or anything like that is we go into a place, we have a controlled environment. We want to make sure we block out any kind of contamination, whether it be, people inside the house, limiting the amount of people that are there, but we take every necessary steps to eliminate that type of interference. And I'd rather go to a place and say, hey, you know what, we didn't catch a thing, because I'm not going to fake evidence just to get this person's ego, stroked, or, my own for that matter. I'm here to give 100% evidence that we captured it. We don't capture anything. The thing we do is, if it's on a recording, we maybe cut it down so it makes the file smaller to present to the client. Or the video, same thing, we cut it down, but we never put any kind of filters on there. We don't do anything to touch the audio up or video. It's 100% raw. That's what we captured, and that's what we present. So you're going to have people still doubt us. Well, you know what? You made that up in your computer. You said your computer yourself. It has to be fake. It's
Well, and that kind of goes back, and I know we're going back into net last week, but I had another follower just text me too, we spoke about the red eyes, the pig eyes,
right.
From that farmhouse that we went to. That's kind of similar to what you're.
And people are getting ideas from movies.
Of course.
Because
Hollywood hasn't been our friend
that was
either.
Amityville.
Right.
That you said that the pig eyes with the red eyes, Pig eyes.
Because I actually,
the pig
and
even
it's
had a
crazy
name
too,
in the
because
movie.
Yeah,
I actually got the call on that, and that's another part that, and that's frustrating is, when I get a case and they call and I ask these questions and they tell you a story, then I have to give it to our team, and then our owners, and what they do is they go build a team depending on what our strengths are, and then that team goes down there, and then all of a sudden they find out, because I could not wait until they got back from this, and come to find out it's the kids were watching the movie. Why didn't you tell me that?
Because she went
you
there.
You went. Was it you?
Went there.
Yeah, and I feel bad because they come back and go, really, bro? and I'm just like, I'm sorry. All I can do is go off of what people say, but that's the same thing that we're
How did you
about.
feel about that?
Well, I think the people there really believed. They did, and there were some like there was something on the stairs that several people had.
There were some odd things that happened there.
Yes.
The motion activated Christmas toys that would come on even when they didn't have batteries in them, that type of thing. Or reportedly didn't have batteries in them. We couldn't verify that for sure, but I mean it.
Are you think that it's more like there are some things going on in the locations, but yet the imagination of some blow it up into something even bigger than what it is. We actually investigated another case where we were being told we were going to see apparitions, full body apparitions within 30 minutes of being there. Guaranteed that was going to happen.
That should have been the first.
Yeah. You know, and like I said, the story changed by the time we got there. It was very, all these unbelievable stories, all in one place, and yet we were like, so, anybody die here? Any tragedy? Oh, no, and I'm like, okay, then, you know, what's going on? But it's just the fact that, you know, I don't think we had anything happen there until the very tail end of the night.
When you guys were leaving.
And it was like one little thing, but it was still, could have been anything else because it was a hotel. It was, you know, it was kind of like a hotel. It had several rooms to it, but they had guests there that night, you know, when we were a child, you know, right as we were leaving.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to throw it away and not give it a credit because there was a child there that was staying there that night.
Right.
And, you know, yeah, it was 4 a.m. as we were walking out the door, and that's when we heard the child. And it sounded like a little girl who was staying. So, you know, at first I'm like, oh, yes, finally. But then again, you know, there was people staying there that night that we were told weren't going to happen, but, you know, it happened. So, you know, even, you know, credibility to people, it really sucks because you work so hard to try to build a case and listen to their story, and I'm not going to say you're lied to because they full-heartedly believe in it, but you get there and it's nothing compared to what you're being told. All these stories and a guarantee that you're going to see something, like it's a paid for admission Halloween haunted house. You know?
The lady was saying the grandkids won't even go on a walk along their tree line because the kids were seeing hangings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
I mean, so when you get these calls, you're like, this is it. And then you get out there and it's not.
You've got to go out and you've got to ask the question.
Could have gotten there and done that interview and if the circumstances would have been different, then it would have been a case worth taking because that family would have been needing some help.
Right.
You know?
Right, yeah.
So, yeah, exactly like Michelle said, we got to go out and take a look.
I totally believe that. It's just that, you know, now more, like I tried to say in our first episode, it's you have to also listen to what they're saying. You almost have to not read the people, but listen to what they're saying and try to believe everything you've ever done in the field and try to put the pieces together and say, okay, what are we dealing with here?
Mm-hmm.
And if it comes out to be like really outlandish stories, it's kind of disheartening,
Mm-hmm.
you know, for us to go, okay, all right, so you saw a pig in the window with glowing red eyes, you know. You were the first to say, I've heard of that before. You know, when you're looking at the story, then you're like, Amityville, it was in the movie, or it's in the story at least.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, it came out in the interview. It came out that they had experienced that several years before, about the time that Amityville would have been a big movie.
Right.
So
Take all stories and claims, salt number one, but we also listen listen to everyone. We're not going to turn somebody away just because our own personal beliefs or bias
Right.
come into effect. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a client that's reaching out to us for whatever reason. They have a cause behind a belief that they're experiencing some type of activity. So we do the interview part first, or we may go out there and in the process interview
Skeptics.
It's good, yeah.
We do.
I mean, you have to be.
You
True
have to.
skeptics, though.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
very true. And we go in trying to debug everything or
Mhm.
debunk everything,
Right.
you know, or, I mean, we have to do that.
Yeah. We don't
you
go
start
in
with
as
a process and you end the process, and then we take all of that information, you know, because sometimes homeowners are we'll get back with you, and, you know, we have had some stuff, so they're excited. But, you know, we have to take everything into, you know, because that's what I like about our team is we've got years and years and years of experience of debunking stuff. And I think that's, you know, when you go back to, like Jeremiah was saying, I think you were starting this, you know, people that are I've learned with my wife, because she's skeptic. I think we all know that.
Right.
And with me, I've learned a lot from her because, for one, when I got into this, I'm one of those people.
Right.
When I hear a door shut or I hear something, I can't wait to get home and go, oh my God, it was like this, and then you get defensive because, you know, we saw it, we heard it, we know what we were there.
Right.
And then you try so hard to tell people what you found. But instead of what I've learned, okay, and there's a lot of growing. I'm almost 50 years old and I'm still growing and learning. And this is the interesting part to me. When you tell a story, and this is what I really like when we go out to events and we actually talk to people, what I like about this team is we don't just let anybody speak.
Right.
Okay, and that's what I really like about it is because, you know, you got to be really careful what you say, because I think with you guys doing this for so long, you've had incidences where things have actually been on TV because somebody from the team said something that was wrong, and it's considered a lie. You know, when they didn't really mean to say it, they're just talking.
Yeah.
And so what I've learned with my wife is when you say something, you need to make sure that what has happened, that you've got something behind it that stands as far as okay, blurt stuff out that what happened, know why and how it happened. One of the big things is the flashlights.
Right.
You know, that's a very big one right there, because people say, you know, and it's a tough subject to talk about, because one of the biggest things is, you know, the batteries arc. You know, but yet, you know, actually talk to an engineer on that, and the batteries don't arc. They you know, there's not enough voltage in a AA
Well,
or
the
AAA
direct current, number one.
Right, direct
and
current.
There's
And
not
so
enough voltage or
what my
amperage.
wife has taught me is to learn what you're talking about before you just start blurting stuff out, because when you find somebody like her, she will destroy that.
Yeah.
And so,
And what Rose is talking about is the whole flashlight trick. Not a trick. It's
Yeah, good job.
it's not a, yeah, sorry. It's not a trick.
What was he just saying
Yeah.
about careful what you say?
Yeah. Because a lot of
Prime
people
example.
think it. Yeah, sorry. A lot of people what you're doing is taking the flashlight and unscrewing the back of it, and you're putting it down, and you have to, like, you know, you're tapping it, and it flickers, right? You're not
Right.
getting anything, and it's off. You stand back, and what we started doing was talking, just out loud, like we always do. You know, is anybody with us? In this room, can you go over there and make that light turn on, that flashlight? And next thing we know, it lights up. It wasn't lighting up beforehand. It wasn't doing it, you know, until we started asking specific questions, a yes or no type question, and it lights up. And you know,
The good stuff.
of his stuff. The man drinks too much, so. But you know, he's got 2 drinks right here. I'm trying to.
Question
cover
is,
up
what's
mine.
in them?
There's nothing like that. So.
But no, that's what he's talking about. Is because we had a case where that is, I've never seen it before. Seen it before.
Right.
Had you, Jeremiah, seen it before? Had you seen it before?
I had
Flashlight?
not. I
And
hadn't
had you seen it before until
No,
we did?
no, not until we've
Not
done
until
it.
Paula did.
Yeah, we went out to Oberlin and it was you set it up. We were having and it kept lighting up on specific questions. And then Paula, who's not here tonight, her and I went out there again in the same room and was asking the specific questions, and it was doing it again. It wasn't happening before. It didn't happen during, like, it was yes and no questions. Are you a boy? You know, light that up. You know, it didn't light up for a girl, but for a boy it lit up. And stuff like that. And that's where Roth is, you know, talking about when he actually was speaking to an engineer who, you know, told him, you know, that the battery part is, you know, that shouldn't happen. So you it away, and you're only getting a little connection when you're tapping it. It should not light up, technically.
Right.
So.
And so the engineer at that point in time said, you know, unless you actually literally go talk to a battery engineer, you know, because I actually tried to get him to see if he'd sign some stuff for us, but, you know, he wouldn't. But, you know, one thing he said, you have to go on with a person that's really skeptic on that, is hope that they have an open mind too. If they're closed minded, just shut down, no matter what you say or they're not gonna understand it.
Right.
So you're
Right.
defeating. You might as well quit.
Mhm.
But what he said you should go off of is say, hey, look, this. If you go back and play the video, those several minutes that we're trying to get an answer, it's not doing anything, or while we're talking. But then the minute you ask it a question, if that thing's going off within a second of you back-to-back questions, you have to go off of that and hope that they at least give you a little bit of respect, and then, you know, see what you can try to come up with, you know, better explain.
Actually, I'm sorry, did I interrupt you?
No. No.
That method was actually something that Brandon Callahan, his brother Courtney, and I were using that night. That in his first book, the house works, that whole night in question where I got scratched in that house, we were using that method in that house that night. And so yeah, and we got some really. That was one of the first few times I had seen it happen. That's been 6 or 7 years ago. So, but that was one of the first times that I had seen. I can't swear that it was the first time, but one of the first times I had seen it actually work. So.
Definitely. I mean, you're always going to have somebody who's going to be a skeptic towards some of our methods that we use, that we do. Some of the equipment we use is modified from its original form, like the radio, for instance, Ghost Box. It's a working radio at one point. It's just been altered to where it speeds up the station, you know, scanning, so it could possibly a spirit can talk through, you know. But if you're really through itself, the singing, the music, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But the only way we can counteract that is then why is it intelligently answering us? Why is it answering us over 10 different stations? If this thing is scanning and sweeping so fast, why is it, you know, why is it not a different voice every time? So, multiple times, giving us full conversations. That how do you refute that? I mean, it's interesting to see. I mean, an experience, like, especially when it says our name.
Yes.
Somebody's refuting it from a higher level. They didn't like my ghost joke earlier, apparently. So.
It's on Jesus. drives Skeptics is everyone's use on orbs, the capture of orbs, because there's so many people that believe, they take a picture and there's an orb there. It's got to be paranormal, and that's a ghost right there.
Just kidding.
But, I mean, it is. I mean, most of most cases, you could have a room that you haven't walked through the room, or anybody has, for like a day or two, and you take a photograph, then you walk through it, and then come back and take from the same angle, and that room is just going to be lit up with orbs. It's basically because it's time.
Right. But then we had a recent case where we filmed for hours in this particular spot, and you watch, there's not any dust, any orbs, anything coming through at all. And then there was one that appears on the screen as that speaks to us.
Right.
So that's one of the times I will give my approval, my stamp of approval behind it, that I feel like this was visual, and something energetic, or it's energy coming through, basically, presenting it, followed by the fact that we had a communication with it.
At a theater where it was actually my wife and I sitting by ourselves, where the team was in a different location of the building.
Yep.
And up in front of us, we started hearing like the floor creaking, as if somebody's moving or walking in front of us. So I grabbed my camera and I just, I said, come out on the, show yourself on the third one if you can. I said it just like that. I took a photograph. I said, all right, now on the second one, come out. I clicked it, and then I took a third picture. First picture, nothing. Third picture, nothing. The middle picture, there's a bright orb that's just right above the floor, and it is glowing bright. And it's right there. There's not a single bit of orbs or dust or anything else flying around. We were still for, 45 minutes to an hour already just sitting there. And the place wasn't dirty per se. But, it was there.
Right.
That's like that house that you did, our helper that runs cables, Cody. And you were in that one bedroom that we went and did, and he said, "Come out! I'm getting ready to, take these pictures." And he put it on, and later when we looked, we actually had it was like a shadow that was leaving the room, going down the hall, and then went into that. What was it? The laundry room?
I think so. Yeah. Yep.
And so that's pretty amazing.
Definitely.
I was a huge skeptic on orbs.
Right.
I wrote everything in the neighborhood of orbs off ever until Brandon Callahan and I went to Galena, Kansas.
Right.
There was a gentleman in Galena who, he came from another town, but which was a long, long time ago, an old brothel. And he did this thing that he done in the past, where he goes out and he stands in the middle of this, in the middle of the old parlor room, and someone's snap, 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 and then he sticks his hands out, and he's got singles, and between every finger, just holding them out. I was like, okay, girls, come get your money. And as soon as he does that, there's orbs everywhere. In pictures, they go away. that made me think. Maybe I've been writing off a bunch of stuff that I didn't need to write off. But,
Yeah.
I mean, still, you have to be careful about how you look at it.
Right.
But,
Well, and I kind of had my own experience with that. I was in Atchison. It was the Theater Atchison. It was my brother and I were paying guests that night, and it seemed to be, I don't know, I think my brother and I were the only ones who were like trying to do everything we could to be those probably about 15 guests, and then you had the 4 or 5 investigators there. Never met them before. They had their computer and DVR system up in the front entrance. Then we were in the major part of the theater.
Mm-hmm.
All that night, it was just weird things that I was active as I could, where I just would see other people just sitting around doing nothing. And I remember being out there walking along all the seats, and I had a millimeter in my hand, and it was just it pinged like right on the seat. And as I get closer to the seat and everything, and as I go down into the seat and go underneath it, my flashlight starts to fade and die. As I got closer, and the millimeter was just ticking up, it was like at 5.2. But my point to the story is, as I was walking back around and going up the aisle back to where the team members were at the DVR system, as I walk up there, they're all just staring at me. They watched the whole thing happen, and they said the whole time I was doing that, there was all these orbs that were just following them, and as I was rounding the corner to them, they were waiting to see orbs behind me because it was just like following.
Right.
Now, there was other people walking and stuff too, and they were sitting. Now, was I stirring up dust? Sure, I could have been doing that. But everything seemed to be following me as I was going right up the aisle. And I was asking questions. And I was trying to do my best to communicate. It's the only time I've ever had that experience where it was like orbs following me up from where I was. It totally killed my flashlight as I was like going underneath the chair, looking around, trying to find like an electrical outlet or something. And it was just all these orbs just following me right up. It was interesting. I just still, I mean, I wasn't a big believer in it because I didn't see anything. I was looking around going, really? You know, what was that? Okay. So.
Just want to throw this out there too. I guess we're having trouble with some of the sound and audio cutting in and out again like last week. Which is weird because this is sure if it's coincidental or if it's just something that's happening. I mean, there's no explanation, but we will look into it and try to figure out what's going on. But hey, the chat's still working though. Last week we lost the chat room, so.
yeah.
Are they getting the responses
I think
now?
it's the streaming software. I think I've got some more tweaks that I need to make on it.
Ruth, you were going to ask a question about something with the orbs, maybe, or something with skeptics. I heard you start to say something before I jumped in.
I'm
Okay.
good. I'm good.
Michelle, you got anything down there?
No, I think we.
Well, let me ask you guys, since you guys are newer to the team, not new, but newer, what do you feel is the best team? How do you feel just anything you can think of on that line.
You want me to go?
Go right ahead.
Other than my wife,
Right.
because it's easy to open up and talk to her and not,
Sure.
or if I say, what I've learned honestly is if I do not know what I'm talking about, I don't say anything. because
Sure.
it's not worth saying something that can screw up our name. I mean, honestly,
Right.
that's what I've learned from you guys. You know, like when we go into businesses, somebody will say, "Hey, you know, do you believe what's, you know, why don't you go talk to Leo on this?" You know, that's what I've learned how to do.
You have your
Next.
own concern about
Yeah.
skeptics. I mean, that's in your
And-
life.
A closed-minded skeptic, I would not even bother to try and argue.
Yeah,
with.
I
mean,
wouldn't
there's
either.
Ryan, but
Name dropping.
I want to do this every investigation we go on. I learn a little bit more on it. So when I know when I say I saw that shadow, or I know I 100% that is the shadow. Anybody, either you believe me or you don't.
Right.
And my team members, I trust you guys, because I know I'm there with you, and
Yeah.
I mean, I could be standing right beside you guys, not hear what you're hearing. It comes up through on the recorder so much of the time.
Right. Which, I mean, I always run that fear of just because one of us hears something and nobody else hears it, and then you go back and listen to the audio or video and it's there, and it's like, well, did he put it there? Did she put it there? You know, you run that. That's what the skeptics where we do a controlled environment. We know we're there for the common cause. It's to help the client figure out what is happening there. So we make sure that we're credible enough to do
That's right.
to even be there. I mean, this person is trusting us to be in their home or business, with or without us at times, and we want to make sure that we're a bad one.
Well, it's just like the going through the recorders. I mean, well, I had 10 hours, but it took me over 20 hours of listening because you go back.
Right.
And in the way we time all the recorders, like Paula, when she heard that name, and we swore that there was somebody else saying she timed.
Yep.
You could tell it was her yawning.
Right.
I mean,
She was saying the word yawning when it sounded like, yeah, but it
Right.
sounded like someone saying someone's name.
Right.
But yet it was just her yawning and she was tagging herself.
but you wouldn't, if you just heard that one tape, you would have heard, and just don't take it,
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, half the time we'll go somewhere and not have anything hardly happen. We'll hear taps, we'll hear this or that, and you know, you don't know until you go back and you listen to it. You won't know until investigating a house with Leo, and
Very first.
yeah, one
Right.
of your first ones with him, and it was, you know, on recorder you hear Leo hear something, and he catches it and he goes, "Did you hear it? Did you hear it?" No, he didn't.
And we were within just a couple of feet of each other.
And that's the voice he heard.
Right.
He was like, he heard a voice that just said, "No, he didn't."
Well, the thing that, especially about that particular incident, what I really love is it was caught on your recorder, and my recorder was sitting
Just-
5 feet from you, and mine didn't catch it. You were having to catch it. My voice has a distinct tone or pitch in there, and it's not me. It's somebody else's voice. That
Yeah, it wasn't
there.
ours, it
That's
wasn't.
right.
So
Right.
that was, I think that sold me right there. I'm in.
Yeah, and we, like I said, the thing I like what we do is we take, like you talked about earlier, the investigative side of it, we make sure that we take the necessary precautions, steps, all the cross-reference it. That's one thing I was really, a firm believer of is we put them next to cameras for reasons. That way you can say who was in the room at the time, it happened to be somebody that was next door or whatever, You can go without 100% saying there was nobody physically near that recording at the time, or there was, and it was, review and go over with at the end of an investigation. We each take turns looking at one camera or whatever, and then I say, here's my list of things I think could be credible, and you bring your list and so on. And then we say, well, we think that's the dog barking. We think that's somebody yawning. That's a car driving by. Or, hey, that's a great one. It goes through as many layers of filters,
Right,
just to
right.
present as evidence to a client.
And I think what fuels me on the whole skeptics and everything that we do is the fact that I hate when they say it's not real or it's not possible. And the fact that it's not something new that happens every day. There's new species that are found every day or every year, so there is a possibility of something happening. So just to say simply, oh, that's not real. Okay, how about you prove that it's not real just as much as I'll prove to you that it is real. That it's not real, and I'll prove to you that it can be.
Definitely.
So.
Yep. So it's just a good touchy topic that can spin off in many different directions. We kind of touched base with I was kind of joking earlier about religion, but religion plays a huge part in this to somebody's beliefs.
Yeah.
You got people that are 100% religious. Have a religious background, and we still are open to the idea there's something out there other than what's taught or what's passed down. So it's good to be a skeptic, but it's also, I feel it's okay to have an open mind. It's also okay to have a closed mind. It makes you who you are, basically. So, we have just a little bit minutes left before the podcast ends here. So if there's anybody that has any questions or anything, like I said, you can ask now or write in and email us. We'll get back to you. We'll bring it up on the next podcast. Each week we're going to try to bring it If you think of anything out there in podcast land, let us know. Email us. Go to our Facebook page, go to any pages we're on.
I actually had somebody text me and said, what about the red dots that people have been seeing on and off? So that's something we probably looked at. Since we're on a short amount of time, next weekend we're going to be out of town doing a big investigation and a reveal as well.
Yeah.
So are we going to be doing are we going to be live? I know we will be live probably there on location. So please everybody tune in.
It's up to you guys. We'll discuss. We'll probably put out some information on our sites to let you know if we're going to have it or not. We're trying to do this every week. But there is stuff that gets in the way every now and then called live. So we'll make sure we'll communicate well with everybody. But
we're going to be up in Overland, Kansas this coming Saturday.
Got at least a minimum of 2 investigations at different locations going on, possibly 3. So. And more, maybe. Who knows? That town
we
embracing
have
us.
we have several lined up that we got to do. From there to from here to there, it's about a 4.5 hour drive.
Family members will let us go live, I would definitely tune in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, we'll go live with Everyday Legacy Paranormal, and we'll go live with Road Trip as much as we have signal. Seems like I'm always having problems with my phone. But yes, we're definitely going to do some live things next weekend.
Right.
How exhausted it will be, but it's going to be a lot of fun next weekend. So tune in if you happen to be out by Oberlin and you're listening, or you paid tuned into this. Then by all means, come see us up there at the museum on Saturday. We're going to start at 2:00.
If you do know anybody that wanted to watch tonight's podcast and they missed it, or if you want to go back and review any of it yourself, there's links out there that we'll tweet, we'll put on Facebook. It's basically the replay of this. It'll be on YouTube, so definitely come check it out and see what you think.
And the four of us will be out there in Oberlin
Right.
next weekend, so we'll be out there.
Amongst others, we'll have many other people with us too.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
definitely. So, like I said, keep bringing those comments in. Keep giving us those topics, whatever you want to hear us talk about. And like I said, soon we'll have guests. Or we'll have people on the start having live guests call in. We'll have plenty to offer in the next upcoming weeks and months. And just keep tuning in. That's all we can ask.
How we doing on time, Jeremiah? 3 minutes? Just a little shout out to Those Tours of Kansas. Catherine Michelle and myself and her daughter Paula, we're going to be tackling that and hopefully add some new stories and, try to do everything we can to entertain and do some fun with it. But Wichita's pretty fascinating. They've got a lot of history and stories to it. So looking forward to that. Just keep on tuning in with us. Hopefully we'll have Bigfoot in Kansas back on here again soon. Missed you tonight, Brendan. Yes, sir. I couldn't read that.
Sorry about the whole time there, most of that time, so.
Thank
some
you
good
so
chat
much.
going on.
Thank you so much. We want to continue doing this. It's
And all
not.
those mothers out there,
Yes,
Yes.
Happy Mother's
happy
Day.
Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's
Got
Day.
2 of them in the
In
room
studio,
right now.
one on here, the panel, one behind the scenes. So
We
happy
will
Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day.